Sascha Faxe, we're here today at the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe to just discuss the plight of the snow leopard, actually, in Kyrgyzstan. Animal rights and human rights are pretty much one and the same as far as I'm concerned, because we, as you know, we're all very much interdependent, and the future of the snow leopard is in jeopardy. It's an endangered species. And in Kyrgyzstan, where we have the largest community, we have a big problem with a railway being put right through its homeland. Were you aware of this before we sent you a copy of our white paper?
I'm sorry to say, but no, I wasn't.
It's a fact that not many people are, to be quite honest, because it's a part of the world which doesn't really present itself that effectively in Europe. But basically the railway is going through it's China, Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan. It's being built by military engineers, and this small and actually diminishing already population is really under threat. Do you think that, given the fact that, for example, the European Commission gives GSP plus status to Kyrgyzstan, that this is an issue that should be addressed in European capitals, in European parliaments?
By all means, otherwise it would be greenwashing and giving them that status. So they're allowing this to happen, which is, I mean, going through a lot of nature that is very special, but it's also endangering a species which is already endangered, and you can't just say somebody is good when they do that. So if they don't act upon it, it would be some kind of greenwashing or a corrupt system. Then can we trust the system if we can do that? And this can happen with that kind of label.
The snow leopard is actually really the dominant species in its environment, and although we animals, whether we be humans or snow leopards or whatever, we're quite robust, quite resilient and adaptive creatures. Ecosystems themselves, though, are very fragile, aren't they? And if you take the dominant species out of the equation, we just don't know what will happen.
And actually, for most of my life, since I was a kid, I learned about the snow leopard from WWF. So it's actually been on my mind since I was a small child. It was one of the reasons why I kept staying as a member as a child, was actually the snow leopard. And knowing that these, especially very fragile ecosystems we see in mountains or where things are not so fertile as we know it, so it's very hard to recover when something happens. And therefore it will not only be the snow leopard, it's going to be a lot of other collateral damage because it's part of an ecosystem, and if you take one out, you're going to endanger the whole system in those mountains. And also you're going through a lot of fauna that'll disappear as well that we haven't got any mapping up, as far as I understand, is what are in those mountains, because that's not been on the radar of people. So underlying of this is that we have a worldview where nature, animals, mountains, waters, plants are just resources for human beings, and we can do whatever we want to do with them and dispose of them if that's what we need to get a railway to get from A to B. And for me, it's really a deep threat to the whole planet that this can happen. I mean, it's a threat to the snow leopard, and we should do whatever we can to stop it. But it's also a threat to our life on planet, because when we start just saying we can discard this, what can we then discard? So for me, there's an underlying issue here. And it's also reflected in our rights-based system in international law that there are not enough laws and conventions to actually protect what we are seeing. So endangered species, nature doesn't have rights on its own and so forth. We don't even have a convention on ecocide, which I would actually say this is borderlining ecocide, what is happening. So we need that. And from there we should act. So both we should stop this, but we should also take the consequence and make the adequate laws and conventions.
One sort of bright point that has occurred since we began this campaign, because EU Today is very much a campaigning news site. We like to kind of shape the news a little bit, and environmental issues very much a very great concern to us. We managed to receive a message of support from a maybe not known so well outside the UK. Michaela Strachan is a big TV star in the UK, and she's also very much big on animal rights. And I was very delighted when we got an email of support from her, but even more delighted and surprised when actually the European Commission wrote to us, very, very supportive. No real concrete promises at the moment as to what they're going to do to put pressure on Kyrgyzstan, and indeed possibly on China and Uzbekistan as well, if that were possible. But as a journalist, I can tell you it's very, very difficult to get any kind of engagement like that from the Commission. So for them to actually accept this as evidence in a consultation was quite an achievement. But would you agree that it's really from the member states that we need to see a bit more effort going into this, a bit more awareness, which you will now be able to take back home with you, and to see this discussed in national parliaments?
I think it's a both and. I think it's both in the Parliament, in the EU, but also in the national parliaments, because I think the underlying way of thinking in the national parliaments are feeding into the EU. The EU is like the sum of what is happening in other countries. So I think it's a both and, but I actually do think that we should also take it to UN level, because we need to adapt our rights-based approach to also include nature on a different level, because otherwise this will keep happening. So there's a stop, like what you have had the reaction from the EU, which I really appreciate, but there's also the next steps that we don't end up in the same place again. And that needs the national parliaments to back that and also take it to the UN. And Denmark currently is one of the members of the Security Council, so it's also a security thing. When we see military people from other countries coming in and making railways, it's also a matter of security. So I think it could be an issue that could be raised on the highest level we do have on the globe.
That's great. That's great to hear. I want to thank you very much for your time. I know it's a very busy week here at PACE. And thank you very much.
Thank you, and congratulations on the report.
Let me give you one of those to take.
Thank you. It's so beautiful.